Hi Wiley ISD friends, welcome back to Art Online Learning with Mrs. Took. I hope you enjoyed your video with Miss L. You get both of us today, so that's pretty exciting. I can't believe that this is our last lesson. You guys have already kind of learned what we're going to be doing today, and you've already made something, but thinking about the elements of art and what you just made with Miss L, think about an artwork that you can then make from that. So maybe pick an element of art or maybe two elements of art and then create a piece of artwork from one of those elements of art. And you know what? If you are extra advanced, you could pick as many of the elements of art as you would like, and your artwork will just be even more dynamic and interesting. For today, I am going to focus on two elements of art. I'm going to focus on line and space, okay? I am going to do what is called a gesture drawing, and we spell gesture like this. So you might be familiar with the word gesture. For example, if I wanted my husband Alex to go get me a bottle of water, I might say, Alex, could you go get my bottle of water? And use my arm to kind of gesture towards the bottle of water, okay? So you might have been familiar with the word in that context, but in art, it is a way to draw. So you guys will see what that means while I'm drawing with you guys. Now today, I'm going to draw something that has to do with summer. I figured that since this is our last week together and one of our last week of school, now we're starting summertime. So if you're not sure what you want to draw, think about something that you are going to do this summer. I'm going to think of something that I would love to do this summer, and that's what I'm going to draw. And I'm going to do a gesture drawing of that thing. So remember, today I am focusing on line and space. You'll see my line work while I'm doing this gesture drawing, and you'll see space when I add value to my drawing. Value is another element of art, my friends. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna use a pencil, but track with me and watch and see what's going on, and then we'll get to, spend time together and figure it out. So again, you're not drawing the same thing as me, you get to pick, but I wanted you guys to get to see what exactly I'm talking about. So a gesture drawing is one that is not necessarily detailed. It's one that maps out where everything is going to go on the paper, and sometimes it can look a little crazy. Now, something that I am excited to do this summer is spend time outside, and I love reading books, and I love drinking tea, and I really love flowers. So I'm going to draw a gestured scene of maybe myself sitting in like a field of flowers with like a cup of tea or a book. And like I said, this isn't going to be a detailed drawing, it's going to be a gesture drawing, mapping out where things go in space using line. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with myself, and I think I'm going to be like sitting down and like leaning back. So I'm going to kind of map out where I'd be there. I'm going to kind of map out different parts of the body. So you can see how gesture drawings are kind of messy, okay? Maybe your teacher, one of your teachers, has one of those models in their art classroom where it's a little wooden person made of all these different little pieces that are connected together, and that's kind of how you could start a gesture drawing when you're drawing a person. So I'm leaning back, those are my hands, my neck will be there, here's my head. I think I've drawn myself a little bit shorter than I am, but that is okay. Okay, I'm gonna draw a stack of books, maybe right next to me. If you're more into kind of detailed drawings, like some of the things that we've done in online learning, you can totally do that. I just wanted to do a gesture drawing because I know that we're on a time limit with you guys right now, and I wanted to fit this whole drawing into one little time section. And I thought it would be a good way to show how line can show space. Okay, so there's my stack of books. Maybe here's a title. And I'm gonna put my cup of tea right here. So you can see this is like really sketchy. That's kind of what a gesture drawing is. I'm gonna draw a little steam coming from my cup. That's more of a detail, but that's okay. And then I said a field of flowers. So maybe let's put a bunch of lines for where the stems of those flowers would be. Maybe it's like a field of like tall grass with flowers in it. So notice I'm putting this all around my person. So if we were drawing a flat drawing that had no space, no dimension, we might only draw this grass like along the bottom of our paper, but that is not how space actually works. When you look out your window, there's not a strip of land at the bottom. You can see the land for miles and miles. And if you look at the ocean, you don't just see a small strip of water at the bottom of your eyes, you see the whole ocean until it reaches the sky where the sun is. So we're gonna make that grass go back and back and back all the way out of our view because I am in a large, large, large field. So typically with a gesture drawing, unless it's for practice, you would kind of map all of these things out like this, and then you'd go back over them with detail. So what I don't want to happen is you see this now, and then when we go back to school in the fall, and your teacher asks for a detailed drawing, this is not what you turn in for a detailed drawing. Gesture drawings are meant to be done fast to map out those spaces, but they are not a completed artwork most of the time. Okay, so I've mapped out where I am, I've mapped out my books, my cup of tea, and then I've got all this grass everywhere, and I'm gonna start laying in just some really gestured flower shapes. And then after I was done with the gesture drawing, I would go back in and add details to these things to make them more realistic. But for the gesture, you just want the basic shape of something. So notice now that I'm further away, I'm doing some that are smaller. So the further away that they would be, the smaller they would get. So these ones should probably be smaller, honestly, but that's what's great about a gesture. You can just draw over, make them smaller, and then we could erase that later. All right, so I've got a bunch of flowers mapped out. And then I can start kind of laying in some of these things. Okay, so I have a chin. Don't know if you know that, but I do have a chin. And then my eyes would go around here. I have long hair. It's usually curly or wavy. And then you go around those shapes to give yourself an arm. I typically, honestly, wear like t-shirts. So I'm gonna give myself a little t-shirt. And then you'd see like the front of that shoulder, and then that arm comes back here somewhere. Oh, there it is, there's that arm. And it would disappear behind that arm, right? Because you can't see through things, so that would be silly. So I'm kind of layering on more gestured lines so that we can see kind of where we're going. So it's staying pretty basic, but we're getting more and more detail as we go. And that is what a gesture drawing is supposed to be. And you'd erase some of those inside details that aren't really details. They were just there to help us find where we were going. I'm keeping it pretty generic still. Okay, so you can kind of see how I've used line. Maybe here I work at Dodd, so I'll put Dodd on my shirt. So I'm gonna keep this pretty generic, okay? But I want to start to point things out. So I've used lots of lines, and you guys can see that. That head should probably be bigger. But let's talk about space. So we've talked about how the flowers would be smaller, farther away, and larger up close. But we also need to think about where the sun's coming from. So I'm gonna have the sun be coming from this direction. And that way, when I'm reading a book in my lap, the sun's coming from here, and the back of the book will block some of the light, which would be great. But that means we're gonna have shadows in some places. So I'm gonna go ahead and map out where those shadows would be. There'd be a pretty big shadow behind me if the sun's coming from there. So shadows help kind of define what space you're in and how the objects in your space are interacting with each other. We'd have some small shadows from my legs and my feet. There'd probably be a big shadow from the books right there. A little one from my cup. And you know what? There might be some shadows and some places under the flowers. We don't know. All right, so that right there is my gesture drawing of myself reading books and drinking tea in a field of flowers this summer. I hope that you enjoyed watching me do that, and I hope that it kind of helps give you some inspiration for your own drawing. But before we go, I want to say thank you for spending time with me this year. I hope you have a great end of the school year and a great summer. Bye, you guys.